The November wind cut through the Oakland cemetery like broken glass. Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of her younger sister Emma's grave, 8 months pregnant, her hand pressed against her swollen belly as if to shield her unborn daughter from the cold. The priest's voice had faded to a distant murmur. Around her, mourners shifted uncomfortably, their dark coats merging into a sea of grief. Emma had been 26. A car accident on a rainy Tuesday night. Gone in an instant. Sarah's fingers trembled as she clutched the single white rose she'd brought. Her sister. Her best friend, the person who'd held her hand through every difficult moment of her life. Now lowered into frozen ground while Sarah stood there, massive and exhausted, her back aching and her feet swollen beyond recognition. Behind her, she could feel David's presence. Her husband of 4 years stood 3 feet back, arms crossed, checking his phone. She'd noticed it during the service, the way he hadn't held her hand, the way he'd arrived separately, claiming he had to handle something at work first. The priest finished. People began to disperse, offering Sarah quiet condolences as they passed. So sorry for your loss. Emma was such a light. Call if you need anything. Sarah barely heard them. She stepped forward, the white rose still in her hand, and knelt awkwardly at the grave's edge. The movement sent a sharp pain through her lower back, but she ignored it. She needed this moment. Just a few more seconds with her sister. "I'll take care of everything you built," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I promise." That's when she heard footsteps behind her. Confident, purposeful. "Sarah," David's voice was cold. Not the voice of the man who'd promised to love her through sickness and health. Not the voice that had whispered sweet things during their honeymoon in Napa Valley. This was the voice he used with telemarketers, dismissive, already decided. She turned, still on her knees, and looked up at him. He stood there in his charcoal suit, the expensive one she'd bought him for his 30th birthday last year. His jaw was set. His eyes were hard, and in his hand was a manila envelope. "What is that?" she asked, though some part of her already knew. "Divorce papers." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was announcing the weather. "I need you to sign them." The world seemed to tilt. Sarah put one hand on the ground to steady herself, her pregnant belly making it difficult to maintain balance. "What?" "I'm filing for divorce." He held out the envelope. "It's better this way. For both of us." "David, I'm standing at my sister's grave." Her voice was barely a whisper. Around them, the few remaining mourners had frozen, shock evident on their faces. "Emma died 4 days ago." "I know the timing isn't ideal." He shifted his weight, impatient. "But we both know this marriage has been over for months. You've let yourself go. You're tired all the time. We don't connect anymore. I'm 8 months pregnant with your daughter." The words came out strangled. She struggled to stand, her movements clumsy and slow. David didn't offer to help. "David, what is happening?" That's when she heard the second set of footsteps. These were lighter. The click of heels on frozen ground. A woman emerged from behind the row of headstones. She was beautiful in that magazine cover way that made Sarah's breath catch. Mid-20s, with glossy dark hair that cascaded down her back, wearing a fitted red dress completely inappropriate for a funeral. Her makeup was perfect. Her figure was slim and toned. Everything Sarah used to be before the pregnancy weight and sleepless nights. "This is taking forever, baby." The woman's voice was high and sweet. She walked right up to David and slipped her arm through his. "The restaurant reservation is in 20 minutes. Sarah stared at her, then at David, then back at the woman. "Who?" she started. "This is Melissa." David's voice was calm, almost bored. "From work. We've been seeing each other for a while now." 6 months, Melissa added helpfully, examining her manicured nails. She looked at Sarah with something that might have been pity, but felt more like amusement. He was going to tell you after the baby came. But honestly, why wait? Sarah's legs felt like water. Her hand went to her stomach instinctively, protective. The baby kicked, a hard jab against her ribs, as if sensing her mother's distress. 6 months? Sarah's voice broke. David, I've been pregnant for 8 months. You've been cheating on me for... Let's not make this dramatic. David thrust the envelope at her. Sign the papers. We can do this civilly, or we can make it ugly. Your choice. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the envelope. She opened it with numb fingers. The first page stared back at her. Petition for dissolution of marriage. There's a pen inside, David said. I need this filed by Monday. Monday? It was Friday. Emma's burial was on a Friday, and he wanted her to sign divorce papers that would be filed in 3 days. David, I don't understand. What about the baby? What about... The baby will be fine. He cut her off. You'll have custody. I'm not interested in playing daddy to a kid I never wanted in the first place. The words hit like physical blows. Sarah actually stumbled backward, her heel catching on the uneven ground. She would have fallen if a mourner, Mrs. Chen from Emma's accounting firm, hadn't caught her elbow. Young man, Mrs. Chen said sharply, her Korean accent thick with disapproval. This is not the time or place. Mind your business, Melissa snapped. She looked at Sarah with undisguised contempt. Sign the papers, Sarah. We have plans. Plans. They had plans. On the day Sarah buried her sister. Sarah looked down at the papers again. Her vision was blurring. Were those tears, or was she having another episode of pregnancy-induced vision problems? The words swam on the page. Division of assets, joint accounts, marital property. Wait, she said slowly, a new horror dawning. The house, our savings. David, I don't have any money of my own. My job ended when I went on bed rest. Everything is in joint accounts. About that. David pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it to face her. I moved the money this morning, 6 a.m. before the banks opened. Sarah stared at the screen. Their joint checking account. The balance read, $300. That was $23,000, she whispered. That was for the baby, for the mortgage, for... It was my money, David interrupted. I earned it. And I'm using it for my future with Melissa. Our future, Melissa corrected, squeezing his arm. She looked at Sarah and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. We're getting married in 6 weeks at the Riverside Plaza. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. Sarah's knees buckled. This time no one caught her. She sank down onto the cold ground beside her sister's grave, the divorce papers scattering around her. The baby kicked again, harder this time. A series of jabs that made Sarah gasp and wrap both arms around her stomach. Are you having contractions? Mrs. Chen asked urgently, kneeling beside her. Should I call an ambulance? She's fine, David said dismissively. She's been doing this for weeks. False alarms. But Sarah couldn't breathe. The world was spinning. Her sister was dead. Her husband was divorcing her at the graveside. There was no money. There was nowhere to go. She was 8 months pregnant, and... You have 30 minutes, David said, his voice cutting through her panic. I already called the landlord. He's meeting me at the house to change the locks. You need to get whatever you can carry and leave. What? Sarah looked up at him, not comprehending. David, that's my home, our home. I'm pregnant. Where am I supposed to? That's not my problem anymore. He took Melissa's hand. 30 minutes, Sarah. After that, anything left inside becomes property of the landlord. He's already agreed to dispose of it. My things, Sarah whispered. The baby's nursery. Emma's photographs. 30 minutes. David turned to walk away, Melissa's heels clicking beside him. That's when Melissa paused. She looked back at Sarah, still on the ground beside the grave, and she smiled. Then she did something that would replay in Sarah's nightmares for weeks. She walked back, stood directly over Sarah, and spat. The saliva hit Sarah's cheek, warm and degrading. It dripped down toward her jaw. "Go cry to your sister," Melissa said sweetly. Then she laughed. "Oh, wait, you can't." David laughed too, actually laughed. The sound of it echoed across the cemetery as they walked away, his arm around Melissa's waist, her head on his shoulder. Sarah sat there for a long moment, unable to move. Mrs. Chen was saying something, but Sarah couldn't hear her over the roaring in her ears. She reached up with trembling fingers and wiped the spit from her face. Around her, the remaining mourners stood frozen in horror. One woman had her hand over her mouth. A man was pulling out his phone, presumably to call someone for help. But Sarah wasn't seeing them. She was seeing Emma's face, her little sister, who'd always been the strong one, the brave one, who'd called Sarah just 5 days before the accident and said, "I need to tell you something important. Can you come to the office tomorrow?" Sarah had said no. She'd been too tired, too pregnant, too focused on nesting and preparing the nursery. She never got to hear what Emma wanted to say. "Mrs. Mitchell," Mrs. Chen said urgently, "you need to get up. You need to get home before—" Home. Sarah didn't have a home anymore. With effort, she pushed herself to her feet. Her lower back screamed in protest. Her swollen ankles wobbled. But she stood. 30 minutes, she whispered. Mrs. Chen helped her to the parking lot. Sarah's car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a rattling engine, sat in the corner. She'd barely made it to the funeral, the gas gauge hovering just above, empty. She drove in a daze. The cemetery was 15 minutes from the house. That left her 15 minutes to pack 8 months of baby preparations and 4 years of married life. When she pulled into the driveway, David's BMW was already there. He was standing on the porch with an older man in a gray jacket, the landlord presumably, and Melissa was in the passenger seat of the BMW, touching up her lipstick in the visor mirror. Sarah's hands shook so badly she could barely turn off the ignition. She walked up the path to the house she'd decorated, where she'd hung curtains and painted walls and imagined raising her daughter. David stood in the doorway, blocking her entrance. "Clock's ticking," he said. Sarah pushed past him. Inside, everything looked the same. The couch where they'd watched movies. The kitchen where she'd cooked dinners he'd stopped eating 6 months ago. The stairs that led up to the nursery she'd spent weeks preparing. She grabbed a duffel bag from the hall closet and started throwing things in. Clothes, a few photos from her side of the bedroom, her laptop, her sister's reading glasses, which Emma had left at the house 2 weeks ago. She couldn't fit the baby's crib, or the changing table, or the carefully organized drawers of newborn clothes, or the rocking chair that had belonged to Sarah's grandmother. 15 minutes became 10. 10 became 5. "Time's up," David called from downstairs. Sarah was in the nursery, staring at the pale yellow walls she'd painted herself, at the mobile of stars hanging over the empty crib, at the stack of board books Emma had bought, each one inscribed with a message. "For my niece, who will be braver than all of us." "Sarah!" David's voice was sharp. "Now!" She grabbed what she could, a handful of onesies, a blanket her mother had knitted before she died, a stuffed elephant. It wasn't enough. It was nowhere near enough. When she came down the stairs, David was holding out his hand. "House keys," he said. "David, please. Keys. Now." She fumbled with the key ring. Her fingers were so swollen she could barely pull the key off. When she finally managed it, David snatched it from her hand. "Car keys, too," he he said. Sarah stared at him. What? The car is in my name. Title's in my name. It's my property. David, I can't. I'm pregnant. I need. Should have thought about that before you let yourself become so dependent. He held out his hand again. Keys. How am I supposed to get anywhere? Sarah's voice cracked. The duffel bag weighed a ton. Her back was killing her. The baby was doing gymnastics in her belly. David, please. Just let me have the car. I'll sign anything. I'm counting to 3, he said. Then I call the police and report it stolen. Sarah looked at his face. There was no mercy there. No recognition of the woman he'd once claimed to love. Nothing but cold determination. She pulled the car keys from her pocket and dropped them in his palm. Good. He pocketed them. The Uber you called should be here in about 10 minutes. I didn't call an Uber. Well, you better start walking then. He turned to the landlord. She's out. Let's get those locks changed. Sarah stood on the sidewalk in front of the house, her duffel bag at her feet, as the November cold seeped through her thin maternity jacket. She was wearing the same black dress she'd worn to the funeral. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. She had no money, no phone plan. She'd just realized her phone was on David's family plan, and he'd probably already canceled it. She pulled out her phone anyway. No signal. He'd already done it. The baby kicked, and Sarah wrapped her arms around her belly. I know, she whispered. I'm scared too. She started walking. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to move, had to get away from the sound of David laughing and Melissa's high-pitched voice saying, God, I'm so glad that's over. Now we can really start our lives. 3 blocks from the house, Sarah's phone buzzed. 1 bar of service flickered on. A voicemail notification popped up. It must have come through before David canceled the plan. She pressed play with shaking fingers. Sarah, this is James Morrison from Morrison & Associates Legal. I was your sister Emma's attorney. I'm so deeply sorry for your loss. Emma was an incredible young woman and a brilliant client. I know this is terrible timing, but there are some urgent matters regarding Emma's estate that require your immediate attention. Could you please call me at this number as soon as possible? It's extremely important. Time sensitive. Please, Sarah. Call me today if you can. The message had been left yesterday. During the funeral preparations, Sarah had turned her phone off. She stared at the phone. Estate matters? Emma had been 26. What kind of estate could she possibly have? Unless... Sarah's mind flashed back to Emma's apartment. The nice one in the renovated building downtown that had always seemed too expensive for a junior accountant's salary. The way Emma had paid off Sarah's student loans last year without explanation. Just got a bonus, she'd said. But it had been $30,000. And that phone call. I need to tell you something important. Sarah's fingers were numb as she dialed the number the attorney had left. It rang twice before a professional male voice answered. Morrison & Associates? This is James Morrison. Mr. Morrison, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is Sarah Mitchell, Emma's sister. I got your message. There was a pause. Then, Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for calling back. Where are you right now? Are you somewhere safe? The question was strange, specific. I'm walking. I don't really have anywhere to go at the moment. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to get to my office as quickly as possible. I'm located at 1100 Peachtree Street, 40th floor. If you need transportation, I can send a car service. It's extremely urgent that we speak today. I don't understand. What's this about? I'd prefer to explain in person. Can you be here in an hour? Sarah looked down at her massive pregnant belly, at her swollen feet in cheap flats, at the duffel bag cutting into her shoulder. I don't have money for a taxi or Uber. I'm sending a car to you right now. Where exactly are you? She gave him the cross streets. He said the car would arrive in 8 minutes. Mr. Morrison, she said before he could hang up, my sister, did she leave me something? In her will? The silence stretched so long Sarah thought the call had dropped. Then, Mrs. Mitchell, your sister left you everything. And I mean everything. We'll discuss details when you arrive. The car is black Mercedes. Driver's name is Robert. He'll take you directly to my office. The call ended. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, trying to process what just happened. Everything? What everything? Emma's apartment? Her car? The Mercedes pulled up exactly 8 minutes later. The driver, a professional-looking man in his 50s, got out and opened the back door. Mrs. Mitchell? He asked kindly. He took one look at her pregnant belly and immediately took the duffel bag from her shoulder. Let me help you with that. The leather seats were warm, heated. Sarah sank into them and felt tears start to form, the first warmth she'd felt in hours. Would you like some water? Robert asked, gesturing to bottles in the center console. The traffic should be light. We'll have you there in 25 minutes. Sarah accepted the water with trembling hands and stared out the window as Atlanta passed by. Somewhere, David and Melissa were at their restaurant, celebrating their freedom. Somewhere, her sister's grave was being covered with flowers from mourners, and somewhere ahead, in a 40th floor office, answers were waiting. The Morrison and Associates building was downtown, all glass and steel and old money. Robert pulled up to the main entrance, helped Sarah out, and carried her bag to the front desk. Mr. Morrison is expecting me, Sarah said to the receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s who looked at Sarah's disheveled appearance with carefully concealed surprise. Of course, Mrs. Mitchell, 40th floor. He's cleared his entire afternoon for you. The elevator ride felt like floating. Sarah watched the numbers climb, 10, 20, 30, 40, and tried to control her breathing. The baby was active, moving constantly, as if she could sense her mother's anxiety. The doors opened to a reception area that screamed power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Atlanta. Modern art hung on cream-colored walls. Everything was sleek, expensive, intimidating. Sarah Mitchell, she told the receptionist here, another polished woman who looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. Right this way. James Morrison's office was corner-positioned with windows on two sides. The man who stood to greet her was in his early 60s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He was dressed in an impeccable suit that probably cost more than Sarah's entire wardrobe, but his face was kind. That was the first thing Sarah noticed. Genuinely kind. Mrs. Mitchell, he said, coming around his desk. Please sit down. Can I get you anything? Water, tea? Have you eaten today? The question was so gentle that Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. No, she admitted. Not since yesterday morning. He immediately picked up his phone. Margaret, can you please order lunch for Mrs. Mitchell? Something nutritious and easy. Maybe the soup and sandwich from the cafe downstairs? Thank you. He hung up and gestured to the leather chairs arranged around a small conference table. Please make yourself comfortable. Sarah lowered herself into the chair with difficulty. Everything hurt. Her back, her feet, her heart. James Morrison sat across from her, his expression grave. First, I want to say how deeply sorry I am about Emma. I've been her attorney for 3 years, and in that time she became not just a client, but someone I genuinely respected and admired. 3 years? Sarah said slowly. But Emma was only 26. Why would she need— Let me start from the beginning, he interrupted gently, because I can see you're confused, and you have every right to be. Emma was very careful about what she shared with you, and she had her reasons. He paused. Did Emma ever tell you about your maternal grandmother, Catherine Wilson? Sarah blinked. My grandmother died before I was born. Emma and I never knew her. That's what you were told? Yes. James opened a folder on the table. The truth is more complicated. Catherine Wilson didn't die before you were born. She died 6 years ago, at the age of 74. The world tilted. What? Your mother, Margaret Wilson Mitchell, had a falling out with Catherine when you were a baby. She took you and Emma and left. Changed her last name back to Mitchell, your father's surname. Catherine tried to find you both for years, but your mother had cut ties completely. By the time Catherine tracked you down, your mother had already passed away. Sarah's mother had died of cancer when Sarah was 19 and Emma was 16. It had just been the two sisters against the world after that. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. What does this have to do with Emma? James slid a photograph across the table. It showed a handsome elderly woman in an elegant dress, standing in what looked like a corporate boardroom. The woman was smiling, confident, powerful. This is Catherine Wilson, your grandmother. He pulled out another photo. This one showed the same woman, younger, in what looked like a 1960s setting, wearing a modest dress and standing in front of a small office with a sign, Wilson Accounting Services. Your grandmother started with nothing, James said quietly. She was a bookkeeper in 1965, smart, hard-working, and absolutely brilliant with numbers. She saved every penny, invested carefully, and slowly built something remarkable. He pulled out more documents, financial statements, property deeds, stock certificates. By the 1990s, Catherine had built a significant fortune. Real estate investments, tech stocks before the boom, municipal bonds. But then something happened. He showed Sarah a newspaper clipping from 1995. The headline read, Atlanta businesswoman walks away from fortune after family tragedy. Sarah read the article with increasing shock. Catherine Wilson had owned 40% of a manufacturing company worth $800 million in 1995. After her daughter Margaret died of cancer, Catherine had withdrawn from public life entirely, but she'd never stopped managing her investments. She created a trust, James continued. Hidden structures, offshore accounts, real estate holdings under subsidiary names. She lived modestly, a small apartment, a 15-year-old car, but her wealth continued to grow exponentially over the next 20 years. Grow to what? Sarah heard herself ask. James met her eyes. When Catherine died 6 years ago, her estate was worth approximately $900 million. The number didn't compute. Sarah stared at him. Million? Million, he confirmed. Emma was 20 at the time. Catherine had found her just 1 year earlier. They'd been in contact secretly. Catherine made Emma her sole heir with one condition. Emma would receive the inheritance when she turned 25, not before. Catherine wanted Emma to have time to mature, to understand the responsibility. Emma. Sarah's voice failed. Emma inherited $900 million? Emma inherited the trust structure when she turned 25, 3 years ago. And Mrs. Mitchell, your sister, was every bit as brilliant as her grandmother. Maybe more so. James pulled out more documents. Emma took that $900 million and over the past 3 years, through strategic investments, real estate acquisitions, and some truly impressive business deals, she increased the value to approximately $1.5 billion. Sarah couldn't breathe. The number was so large it didn't seem real. Billion? Billion. James leaned forward. Your sister owned commercial real estate in 5 major cities. She had significant stakes in 3 tech companies. She owned 12% of a medical device company that went public last year and tripled in value. She had municipal bonds, private equity investments, and— He paused. She bought controlling shares in several Atlanta area businesses. Why didn't she tell me? Sarah whispered. The betrayal was sharp, immediate. Emma had been a billionaire while Sarah struggled to make rent. Because she was protecting you, James said gently. Emma came to me 18 months ago with concerns about your husband. She'd hired a private investigator and discovered David was having an affair with his co-worker, Melissa Chen. She also discovered that your mother-in-law, Linda Warren, was actively encouraging the affair and pressuring David to divorce you. Sarah felt like she'd been punched. What? James pulled out more papers, photographs, time-stamped images of David and Melissa together, dating back 9 months. Emails between Linda and David discussing your pregnant wife problem. Bank statements showing a $10,000 transfer from Linda Warren to Melissa Chen 3 weeks ago. Emma wanted to tell you, James said quietly, but she was also a strategist. She knew that if you found out about the affair, you'd likely confront David and the situation would escalate. She wanted to wait until after the baby was born, when you were stronger, when she could present you with not just evidence, but solutions. Solutions, Sarah repeated numbly. Emma created what she called her justice protocol. James opened another folder. This one was labeled with Sarah's name. If something happened to her before she could tell you everything, I was instructed to set everything in motion immediately. She predicted several scenarios, including— He paused delicately. The possibility that David would use a moment of vulnerability to initiate divorce proceedings. Sarah looked down at the papers spread across the table. Her sister had known, had prepared, had protected her even from beyond the grave. The $1.5 billion, James said, is now yours. Emma left everything to you, with one exception. She established a trust fund for your daughter worth $150 million. The rest, every asset, every investment, every property, is yours to control. The baby kicked, hard. Sarah put her hand on her belly and tried to process what she was hearing. Mrs. Mitchell, James continued, his voice taking on a different tone. There's more you need to know. Emma was very specific about timing. She knew that when you inherited, you would become a target. People would come out of the woodwork claiming relationships, demanding money, attempting manipulation. That's why she insisted on several protections. He pulled out another document. First, the prenuptial agreement you signed with David. Your mother-in-law insisted on it, correct? Sarah nodded. It had been humiliating. Linda had presented it 2 weeks before the wedding, saying it was just to protect the family. That prenup, James said with grim satisfaction, states that any assets you inherit from your family remain your separate property, completely protected from marital division. Linda Warren thought she was protecting her son from your potential inheritances. Instead, she guaranteed that David has no legal claim to a single dollar of your current fortune. Sarah almost laughed. It came out as a choked sound. Second, James continued, Emma purchased several properties and businesses that I believe will be particularly relevant to your situation. She bought the controlling shares in Warren Manufacturing. That's your father-in-law's company. She owns 60% of it. She also purchased the Riverside Plaza Event Center 6 months ago through a subsidiary company. Riverside Plaza, Sarah repeated. That's where Melissa said they're getting married. Indeed? James smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. She also purchased significant stakes in the Atlanta Medical Center, the hospital where your obstetrician works and where you'll likely deliver. And she bought the building that houses David's marketing firm, Warren and Associates Digital. She's their landlord. The implications were slowly sinking in. Emma had created a web of control around everyone who might hurt Sarah. There's more. James pulled out a final folder. Emma documented everything. The affair timeline, The conspiracy between Linda and David? The financial planning for his wedding to Melissa while still married to you? The $10,000 payment to Melissa that appears to be compensation for accelerating the divorce timeline, and he paused. Emma discovered that Melissa Chen is not actually pregnant. Sarah's head snapped up. What? Melissa has been claiming to be pregnant for 3 months. Emma's investigator documented multiple instances of her wearing baggy clothing despite being supposedly in her second trimester, avoiding all doctor appointments and changing her story about her due date. Most damningly, he found text messages between Melissa and a friend that read, and I quote, "The pregnancy is fake. It's my insurance policy to make sure he marries me before the divorce is final." Sarah sat back in her chair. The leather was soft, the office was warm, and her entire world had just been turned inside out. "What do I do?" she asked finally. "First," James said, "you take care of yourself and your baby. You need a safe place to stay." Emma's primary residence was a penthouse on Peachtree Street. It's yours now. Fully furnished, completely secure. I'll have Robert take you there after this meeting. Second, you take time to process this information. Third, his eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. When you're ready, we execute Emma's justice protocol. What does that mean? It means, James said, that we let David and Melissa proceed with their plans. We let them feel safe, confident, victorious. We let Linda Warren believe she successfully maneuvered her son out of an undesirable marriage. And then, at the moment of their choosing, at their wedding, surrounded by everyone they know, we show them exactly what they've lost. Sarah looked at the photographs spread across the table. David and Melissa laughing together, Linda handing over a check. Text messages planning the divorce for after the funeral. She'll be too grief-stricken to fight back. They'd planned this, carefully, deliberately. They'd waited for Emma's death to make their move. "Emma wrote you a letter," James said quietly. He pulled out an envelope. The paper was cream-colored, expensive, and it was sealed with red wax. "She left instructions that I should only give this to you after I'd explained everything else." Sarah took the envelope with shaking hands. Her name was written on the front in Emma's distinctive handwriting. She broke the seal and unfolded the letter. Emma's voice seemed to echo off the pages. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I never got to tell you everything in person. I wanted to. God, I wanted to so badly, but I also wanted you to be ready, to be strong, to be in a position where you could hear this news from a place of power, not vulnerability. By now, James has told you about grandmother Catherine, about the fortune, about what I built on top of what she left me, about David and his mother and that poisonous woman he thinks he's in love with. I know you're angry at me for not telling you. I know you feel betrayed by my secrecy, and you have every right to those feelings. But Sarah, I need you to understand. I was protecting you, not from the money. You're more than capable of handling wealth. I was protecting you from the ugliness that comes when people discover you have it. David's affair started 9 months ago. I've known since the beginning. I hired the best investigators in Atlanta, and they've documented everything. Every lie he told, every hotel room he booked, every text message he thought was private. His mother orchestrated this. She paid Melissa $10,000 to accelerate the timeline. They planned to wait until after the baby was born, but Linda got impatient. She wanted David free before the baby created legal complications. They chose my funeral as the moment to strike because they thought you'd be too destroyed to fight back. They thought grief would make you pliable, desperate, easy to manipulate. They were wrong. Sarah, you are the strongest person I know. You've survived our mother's death. You've built a life from nothing. You've carried our family's kindness and grace through every hardship. And now, you're about to become a mother yourself. I've given you the tools you need, all of them. The money is just the beginning. I've purchased strategic properties, gathered evidence, created pathways for justice that will seem almost like destiny when they unfold. But here's the most important thing I need you to understand. This isn't about revenge. This is about protection. Protection for you and for your daughter. Protection from people who view kindness as weakness and vulnerability as opportunity. Grandmother Catherine taught me that the best weapon a woman can have is patience. Let them think they've won. Let them celebrate. Let them plan their wedding and invite their friends and toast to their new beginning. And then, when they're surrounded by everyone they want to impress, show them the truth. Show them what they threw away. Show them what a Wilson woman is made of. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them understanding. You certainly don't owe them mercy. What you owe is truth and dignity. And most importantly, you owe it to your daughter to show her that women in our family don't accept being discarded like trash. Trust James. He's been my partner in this for 3 years, and he'll be your anchor now. Trust Catherine Zhao, my financial advisor. She'll teach you everything you need to know about managing the fortune. Trust Marcus Reynolds, the investigator. He'll continue gathering evidence until the moment you need it. And trust yourself. You're stronger than you think, smarter than they ever gave you credit for. And you're about to show them exactly what they lost when they underestimated you. I love you, big sister. I wish I could be there to see this unfold, but I know you'll handle it with the grace and steel that makes me so proud to be your sister. Take care of my niece. Tell her about her Aunt Emma, who loved her before she was born. Tell her about her great-grandmother Catherine, who built empires from bookkeeping. Tell her she comes from a line of women who don't break. They wait, they watch, and they win. All my love, always, Emma P.S. There's a folder in the safe at the penthouse labeled Justice Protocol, Wedding Edition. Everything you'll need is there. Grandmother Catherine left notes, too. We've been preparing for this for 3 generations. P.P.S. The Mercedes that brought you here? It's yours. Emma bought it 6 months ago in anticipation of this moment. There are 4 more cars in the building's garage, all registered in your name. You'll never be stranded again. Sarah read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd time, her tears had dried. Her hands had stopped shaking, and something hard and bright had crystallized in her chest. She looked up at James Morrison. When is their wedding? 6 weeks, he said. February 14th, Valentine's Day. They've invited 200 guests, and the venue is the Riverside Plaza, which you own. Sarah folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I want to see the Justice Protocol folder. James smiled. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting to hear those words. I thought you might. But first, Mrs. Mitchell, you need to eat, rest, and see a doctor. Emma left instructions that your health and your daughter's health take priority over everything else. The Justice Protocol will wait until you're ready. I'm ready now. You're exhausted, grieving, and you haven't eaten in 24 hours, James said gently but firmly. Emma's last instruction to me was clear. Under no circumstances was I to let you make major decisions while in crisis. You have 6 weeks. David and Melissa aren't going anywhere. But your daughter needs you healthy. As if on cue, someone knocked on the door. Margaret entered with a tray containing soup, a sandwich, fruit, and hot tea. The smell of food made Sarah's stomach clench with sudden, desperate hunger. Eat, James said. Then Robert will take you to the penthouse. Tomorrow we'll start making plans. But tonight, Sarah, you rest. You're safe now. Everything else can wait. Sarah picked up the spoon. The soup was chicken noodle, warm and comforting. She took a bite, then another. Her hands were steadier now. "One question," she said between bites. "The money David stole, the $23,000. "We'll recover it," James assured her, "with penalties and interest. It's documented theft of marital assets. But honestly, Mrs. Mitchell, $23,000 is such a trivial amount now that—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say that what David considers his greatest victory will become his most humiliating confession." Sarah finished the soup, the sandwich, the fruit. She drank the tea slowly, letting warmth spread through her body. "I'm ready to go," she said finally. Robert was waiting by the elevator. The Mercedes purred to life, and they headed north on Peachtree Street. The building was modern glass and steel, with a doorman who greeted Sarah by name. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, tipping his hat. "Welcome home. Ms. Wilson told us to expect you. I'm so sorry for your loss." The penthouse was on the 42nd floor. The elevator opened directly into the apartment, a security feature, Robert explained. Private access only. Sarah stepped into space that looked like something from a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern furniture in soft grays and creams. Original art on the walls, a full kitchen with high-end appliances. And everywhere, there were framed photographs. Emma as a child. Emma and Sarah together, their mother. And photographs Sarah had never seen before. An elegant older woman she now recognized as Catherine Wilson, wearing designer gowns at charity galas, shaking hands with politicians and business leaders. "The nursery is through here," Robert said, leading her down a hallway. Sarah followed him and stopped in the doorway. The room was perfect. Pale yellow walls, just like the nursery she'd painted at the house. But this one had everything. A white crib that looked like it cost thousands. A rocking chair by the window. A changing table fully stocked with supplies, drawers full of clothes in every newborn size. Books lined a small shelf, and Sarah recognized them. The same board books Emma had bought, each inscribed with messages. "Ms. Wilson had this room prepared 4 months ago," Robert said quietly. "She wanted you to know you'd always have a safe place for your daughter." Sarah walked to the crib and ran her fingers over the soft bedding. A mobile of stars hung overhead, identical to the one she'd left behind at the house. "The master bedroom is here," Robert continued, showing her a room that looked like a luxury hotel suite. "There's food in the kitchen, and the refrigerator is fully stocked. If you need anything at all, there's a phone list on the counter with numbers for building security, housekeeping, and Mr. Morrison's direct line. He said to call any time, day or night." "Thank you," Sarah said. Her voice was hoarse from crying, from exhaustion, from everything. Robert handed her a set of keys. "The Mercedes, the building entrance, the penthouse, everything's labeled. Get some rest, Mrs. Mitchell. The world looks different after sleep." After he left, Sarah walked through the penthouse slowly, touching furniture, looking at photographs, trying to absorb the reality of her situation. Her phone buzzed. One last gasp of service before David's cancellation went through. A text message from an unknown number. A photo of Melissa wearing a massive diamond ring, with the caption, "Can't wait for you to watch us get married. Front row seat to your replacement." Sarah looked at the message for a long moment. Then she deleted it. She walked to the master bedroom's ensuite bathroom, marble surfaces, a soaking tub that could fit 3 people, a shower with multiple heads. She turned on the water as hot as she could stand and stepped under the spray. The water washed away the cemetery dirt, the humiliation. the spit that Melissa had aimed at her face. Sarah stood there until her fingers pruned, until the water ran cold, until she felt like maybe she could breathe again. She put on one of the soft robes hanging in the closet and walked to the nursery. There was a rocking chair by the window. She sank into it, her hand on her swollen belly, and looked out at the city lights. "Your Aunt Emma," she whispered to her daughter, "was the smartest person I've ever known. And she made sure we'd be safe. Both of us." The baby kicked, a gentle flutter against her palm. "We're going to be okay," Sarah continued. "Better than okay. We're going to show them what it means to underestimate a Wilson woman." She rocked slowly, back and forth, as exhaustion finally pulled her under. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of Emma's letter. They wait, they watch, and they win. Sarah woke up 8 hours later in an actual bed. She didn't remember moving from the rocking chair, but her body had apparently carried her to the bedroom on autopilot. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and for a confused moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then reality crashed back. Emma was dead. David had divorced her at the graveside. She was homeless and broke and... No, that wasn't right anymore. Sarah sat up slowly, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward. She wasn't homeless. She was in a penthouse worth more than she could calculate. She wasn't broke. She was worth $1.5 billion. The number still didn't feel real. Her phone was completely dead now. David had clearly followed through on canceling the plan. But there was a brand new iPhone on the nightstand with a note in James Morrison's handwriting. "Your new phone. Number is already established. Everything is set up. JM." Sarah picked it up. The phone unlocked with her face. The screen showed a welcome message and a single text from James. "Good morning. Take your time. When you're ready, call me. No rush. You're safe." She was safe. Sarah got out of bed and walked to the window. 42 floors below, Atlanta spread out in every direction. Somewhere down there, David was probably waking up next to Melissa, satisfied that he'd successfully removed his problem wife. Somewhere down there, Linda Warren was probably congratulating herself on a manipulation well executed. They had no idea what was coming. Sarah showered, using expensive products that smelled like lavender and honey. She found clothes in the master closet, maternity clothes in her size, ranging from casual to elegant. Emma had thought of everything. She chose simple black leggings and an oversized sweater, then made her way to the kitchen. The refrigerator was indeed fully stocked. She made herself scrambled eggs and toast and sat at the kitchen island, eating slowly, methodically, rebuilding her strength. When she finished, she picked up the new phone and called James Morrison. He answered on the first ring. "Good morning, Sarah. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm in a dream," she admitted. "Or maybe a nightmare. I can't tell which yet." "That's understandable. Would you like to come to the office today? We have a lot to discuss, and I'd like you to meet Catherine Zhao, your sister's financial advisor. She's excellent at explaining complex financial structures in ways that make sense." "Yes," Sarah said. "But first, I need to know something. Can David find me here?" "No," James said firmly. "The penthouse is owned by a trust. Your name doesn't appear on any public documents. Even if David hires an investigator, which, according to our monitoring, he already has, he won't be able to locate you. You're completely safe." Monitoring? Emma established digital surveillance on David's communications 18 months ago. It's all completely legal. She never accessed his phone directly, but she monitored public records, credit card transactions, email metadata. We know he's Googled Catherine Wilson 43 times in the past 24 hours. He's terrified. Sarah felt a small, cold smile form. "Good. Can you be ready in an hour? Robert will pick you up. I'll be ready. An hour later, Sarah was back in James Morrison's office. But this time she wasn't alone. A woman in her mid-40s sat at the conference table, dressed in an immaculate navy suit with sharp, intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. "Sarah Mitchell," James said. "This is Catherine Zhao. She's been managing Emma's portfolio for the past 3 years." Catherine stood and extended her hand. Her shake was firm, confident. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she said, and it sounded genuine. "Emma was one of the most brilliant clients I've ever had. She had a natural instinct for strategic investment that most people spend decades trying to develop." "Please sit," James said. "We have a lot of ground to cover." For the next 3 hours, Catherine walked Sarah through the entirety of Emma's, now Sarah's, fortune. The numbers were staggering. "Real estate holdings," Catherine said, displaying a spreadsheet on a large monitor. "Commercial properties in Atlanta, Charlotte, Miami, Nashville, and Birmingham. Total value, approximately $320 million. Rental income, $2.1 million monthly." Sarah stared at the number. "Million? Per month?" "Monthly," Catherine confirmed. "These are high-end commercial spaces. Corporate tenants with long-term leases. The income is stable and predictable." She clicked to the next slide. Tech investments. Emma got in early on 3 startups that have since become major players. Her 12th stake in MedTech Solutions, the medical device company, is now worth $180 million. Various other tech holdings, $95 million. Click. Private equity investments, municipal bonds, blue-chip stocks, $450 million. Click. Offshore accounts and international investments, $215 million. Click. Liquid assets. Cash and equivalents easily accessible, $90 million. Click. Strategic business acquisitions. This is where it gets interesting. Emma bought controlling shares in several local businesses, including Warren Manufacturing, the Riverside Plaza Event Center, the building housing Warren and Associates Digital, and significant stakes in Atlanta Medical Center and First National Bank of Georgia. Total value, $150 million. Sarah's head was spinning. Why those specific businesses? "Because," Catherine said with a slight smile, "Emma was a chess player. She positioned you to control every major aspect of your former husband's life without him knowing it. His father's company? You can shut it down tomorrow. His firm's office building? You're the landlord. You control his lease. The hospital where you'll give birth? You're a major shareholder. The bank where he keeps his accounts? You have influence there, too. And of course, the venue where he plans to marry his mistress, you own it outright." "Jesus," Sarah whispered. "The total current value," Catherine concluded, "is $1.5 billion. But that number grows daily through compound interest, rental income, and market appreciation. At current rates, you're earning approximately $3.2 million per month in passive income alone." The number was so large it didn't feel real. Sarah had been devastated yesterday about losing $23,000. Now she was earning 100 times that every month without doing anything. "What Emma wanted," James interjected, "was for you to understand the scope of what you have before we discuss what comes next. This isn't just money, Sarah. This is power, security, options. Emma built this fortune specifically to protect you and your daughter from ever being vulnerable again." "And the justice protocol?" Sarah asked. James and Catherine exchanged glances. James pulled out a thick folder with Emma's handwriting on the cover. "Justice Protocol, Wedding Edition." Emma created several scenarios, he explained, depending on how and when David initiated divorce proceedings. The fact that he did it at the cemetery, in front of witnesses, with his mistress present. That actually follows Emma's worst-case prediction almost exactly. He opened the folder. Inside were detailed timelines, strategies, and what looked like a week-by-week plan. The core strategy, James said, is strategic patience. We let David and Melissa proceed with their wedding plans. We let them accumulate debt. Emma predicted they'd overspend, and our monitoring confirms she was right. They've already spent $18,000 on deposits, and David's credit cards are nearly maxed out. Meanwhile, Catherine picked up, we execute your transformation. Emma was very specific about this. She didn't want you to hide your wealth. She wanted you to emerge gradually, strategically, in ways that would catch the attention of your former in-law's social circle. She pulled out another document, a week-by-week plan. Weeks 1-2, recovery and education. You focus on your health, your pregnancy, and learning about your assets. We handle all legal matters. You don't engage with David at all, no responses to his calls or texts. Radio silence. Weeks 3-4, medical and legal groundwork. You establish care with the best obstetrician in Atlanta, at the hospital where you're now a shareholder. You meet with our team of attorneys to file responses to David's divorce petition. We begin gathering evidence for countersuit. You also begin working with a personal trainer and nutritionist. Emma was clear that she wanted you to feel healthy and strong. Not because you need to change, but because pregnancy has been hard on your body. Weeks 5-6. Emergence begins. You make your first public appearance at a charity luncheon. Nothing flashy. You're just there, looking healthy and put together, making a modest donation. Say $500,000 to the Atlanta Women's Shelter. Sarah nearly choked. $500,000? It's 0.03% of your total wealth, Catherine said mildly. And it makes headlines. Anonymous donor gives record gift to Women's Shelter. The news spreads. People start asking questions. Who is this mysterious benefactor? Week 7-8, strategic visibility. You accept board positions at 2 charitable foundations. You attend gallery openings. You're photographed at a VIP table at the Symphony Gala with the mayor and other prominent Atlanta figures. Your mother-in-law, Linda, will hear about it. She'll see the photos, and she'll start to wonder. Weeks 9-10. The whispers grow. By now, society pages are mentioning you. Sarah Mitchell, philanthropist and businesswoman. Your transformation is visible. You've lost the pregnancy weight. You're glowing, you're dressed in designer clothes that fit perfectly. You're everything Melissa pretended she'd replace. Week 11-12, the invitation arrives. Right on schedule, Melissa insists on inviting you to the wedding. Emma predicted this with 90% certainty. Melissa will want you there to humiliate you, to show you what you lost. David will protest at first, but ultimately agree because he sees it as closure. You RSVP with 3 words. I'll be there. Week 13, the revelation. February 14th, Valentine's Day, their wedding day. You arrive at the Riverside Plaza, your venue, in a designer gown worth more than their entire wedding budget. You're accompanied by security and legal team, and when the moment is right, you take the microphone. James leaned forward. And then, Sarah, you show them everything. Every piece of evidence, every lie exposed, every manipulation documented. You show them that Melissa's pregnancy is fake. You show them that Linda paid for the affair. You show them that Emma knew everything. And you show them that you now own the venue they're standing in, the building David works in, and the company his father runs. You don't yell, Catherine added. You don't cry. You simply present facts. Let the evidence speak. Let them drown in the reality of what they've done. Sarah sat back in her chair. The plan was elegant, brutal, perfect. What if I don't want to wait? She heard herself ask. What if I want to move faster? James shook his head. Emma was adamant about pacing. If you move too fast, David will lawyer up, protect assets, create barriers. If you wait, If you let him feel safe, he'll continue making mistakes. He'll accumulate debt. He'll make public declarations. He'll tie himself to Melissa legally. And when the truth comes out, there will be no escape, no way to spin it, no way to claim misunderstanding. Think of it as compound interest, Catherine said. Every day that David feels confident is a day he digs his hole deeper. Every dollar he spends on the wedding is money he'll never recover. Every lie Melissa tells is more ammunition for your case. Patience multiplies returns. Sarah looked at the folder, at the timeline, at the careful strategy Emma had built. Her sister had seen all of this coming, had prepared for it, had created a roadmap to justice. "Okay," she said finally. "We follow Emma's plan. But I want to add something." "What?" James asked. "I want to establish a foundation in Emma's name for women leaving abusive relationships. Real resources, legal help, housing assistance, job training, childcare. I want to fund it properly. Say $50 million to start." Catherine smiled. Emma had that exact item in her protocol. Page 47. She flipped to the page and showed Sarah. There, in Emma's handwriting, the Emma Wilson Foundation for Women's Independence. Initial endowment, $50 million. Mission: ensure no woman is ever trapped by financial dependency. Below that, Emma had written, "I knew you'd think of this, Sarah, because you're exactly the kind of person who experiences injustice and immediately thinks about preventing it from happening to others. This is why the money belongs with you." Sarah felt tears forming. She wiped them away impatiently. "When do we start?" "We already have," James said. "Our legal team filed your response to David's divorce petition this morning. It's a complete denial of his claims and a counter-petition alleging fraud, theft of marital assets, and misconduct. David will receive it this afternoon." "The charity luncheon is in 3 weeks," Catherine added. "I've already RSVP'd on your behalf. I've also scheduled appointments with 3 designers to create appropriate wardrobe." Emma left instructions and a budget. "How much?" $200,000 for the initial wardrobe build-out. Emma was very clear that you should look like the woman you are. Powerful, elegant, and completely beyond David's reach. Sarah took a deep breath. "All right, let's do this. Let's follow Emma's plan exactly." "One more thing," James said. He pulled out a final document. Emma left video messages for different stages of the process. This one, he held up a USB drive, is labeled "For Sarah" when she says yes. Would you like to watch it now, or would you prefer privacy? "Now," Sarah said. "I want you both here." James inserted the drive into his computer and turned the monitor so Sarah could see. The screen flickered, and then Emma's face appeared. She was sitting in what looked like this very office, wearing a casual sweater and jeans. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were serious. "Hi, Sarah," Emma's recorded voice said. "If you're watching this, it means James has told you everything, and you've agreed to follow the justice protocol. I'm so proud of you, and so sorry I'm not there to help you through it personally. I want you to know something important. This isn't about revenge. I know it might feel like revenge, and honestly, there's probably a part of you that wants David and Melissa and Linda to hurt the way they hurt you. That's human. That's valid. But this is really about something bigger. It's about showing the world and showing your daughter that cruelty has consequences, that manipulation gets exposed, that people who view kindness as weakness eventually discover how wrong they were. Grandmother Catherine taught me something when I first inherited her fortune. She said, "The most powerful thing a woman can do is wait until her enemies have fully committed to underestimating her." then reveal the truth at the moment it will hurt them most. That's what we're doing. We're letting David commit fully to his narrative. The narrative where he's the victim of an unhappy marriage. Where he's brave for choosing his authentic happiness. Where he deserves a fresh start with his beautiful, young, uncomplicated new fiancée. We're letting him spend money he doesn't have on a wedding that's supposed to prove he made the right choice. We're letting Melissa play the role of the upgraded replacement. We're letting Linda believe her scheming was successful. And then, when they're surrounded by everyone they want to impress, when they're at the absolute peak of their false triumph, we show everyone the truth. Not because we're mean, not because we're vindictive, but because truth matters. Because your daughter deserves to know her mother didn't just accept being discarded. Because the next woman David meets needs to be warned. Because the next family Linda tries to manipulate needs to know what she's capable of. This is justice, Sarah. Clean, documented, undeniable. You're going to be amazing. You're going to walk into that venue looking like the queen you are. You're going to speak calmly and clearly. And you're going to change your life and your daughter's life forever. I love you. I'm with you. And I can't wait for you to show them what a Wilson woman can do. Oh, and one more thing. Emma's smile turned mischievous. I bought you a car. Well, 5 cars. But there's one in particular I think you'll love. It's in the garage. Level P3, spot 42A. Consider it your driving to the wedding car. You'll know it when you see it. Good luck, big sister. You've got this. The video ended. Sarah sat there for a long moment, staring at the blank screen where her sister's face had been. She really thought of everything, Sarah said finally. Everything, James confirmed. Even which shoes you should wear to the wedding. They're in the protocol folder. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. It was a small, broken sound, but it was genuine. Of course she did. So, Catherine said, pulling out a tablet. Shall we review your schedule for the next 13 weeks? Emma created a day-by-day timeline with tasks, appointments, and benchmarks. It's detailed, but it's also flexible. We can adjust as needed based on how you're feeling and how your pregnancy progresses. Yes, Sarah said. Show me everything. They spent another 2 hours going over details. Medical appointments with Dr. Rachel Chen, Atlanta's top obstetrician and a personal friend of Emma's. Personal training sessions with Marcus Johnson, who specialized in pre- and postnatal fitness. Nutrition consultations, legal strategy sessions, financial education meetings, board meeting preparations, wardrobe fittings. The charity luncheon is 3 weeks away, Catherine reminded her. That's your first public appearance. Emma picked the Atlanta Women's Shelter benefit specifically because Linda Warren always attends. She's on the board. She'll see you there. What should I expect? Linda will approach you, James said. She won't be able to help herself. She'll want to know where you got the money for the table and the donation. She'll be fishing for information, trying to determine if you're dating someone wealthy or if you borrowed money. What do I say? As little as possible, Catherine advised. Be gracious. Be vague. Oh, I've been very fortunate is sufficient. The less you explain, the more she'll wonder. And the more she wonders, the more she'll talk. Which means the whispers will spread. The goal, James added, is to create mounting anxiety in David and his family. They need to know something has changed, but they shouldn't understand what. Not yet. The confusion will make them sloppy. They'll make mistakes. Sarah nodded slowly. When do I move into the penthouse permanently? You're already there, James said. Robert brought your duffel bag yesterday. Everything you owned is in the master bedroom closet. I took the liberty of having a shopping service supplement your belongings. Maternity clothes, toiletries, anything you might need. David doesn't know where I am? David knows nothing, James confirmed. He's called your old number 47 times. He's driven past the house 3 times. He's checked the women's shelters. We have contacts who confirmed he called asking if a pregnant woman named Sarah Mitchell had checked in. He's panicking. Good, Sarah thought. Let him panic. There's one more thing, Catherine said carefully. Emma established a protocol for if David attempts to contact you before the wedding. She was very specific. No responses, not even to confirm receipt. Complete radio silence. It will drive him crazy. But more importantly, it prevents him from manipulating you or gathering information about your state of mind. What if he shows up at the hospital when I'm in labor? Security has his photo, James said. He's on a no-admit list. Same with Melissa and Linda. They won't get past the lobby. And after the baby is born? Emma set up a private recovery suite at Atlanta Medical. 2 weeks of postpartum care with 24/7 nursing support. You won't be alone for a second. Sarah felt something in her chest loosen slightly. For the first time since Emma's death, since David's betrayal, since the cemetery and the cold and the spit on her face, she felt like maybe she could breathe. When do I get to see the car Emma bought me? She asked. James smiled. Robert's waiting downstairs. He'll take you home by way of the garage. Fair warning, Emma had expensive taste in vehicles. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the parking garage on level P3, staring at spot 42A. The car was a Rolls-Royce, midnight blue, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, with custom interiors in soft cream leather. Ms. Wilson special ordered it 9 months ago, Robert said quietly. She said, and I quote, "My sister is going to need a car that announces she's arrived before she even opens her mouth. The license plate is customized." Sarah walked around to the back. The plate read, Wilson 1. There are 4 other vehicles, Robert continued, gesturing to the adjacent spots. A Range Rover for daily use, a Tesla for environmental consciousness, a Mercedes sedan for business meetings, and, he paused with a slight smile, a 1967 Mustang convertible that Ms. Wilson restored herself. She said it was for when you need to remember that money doesn't define you. Sarah ran her fingers over the Rolls-Royce's perfect paint job. This car probably cost more than the house she'd shared with David. Want to take it for a drive? Robert asked. No, Sarah said. I'll wait. I'll drive it for the first time on February 14th. I want that to be the car that pulls up to David's wedding. Robert's smile widened. Ms. Wilson said you'd say that. She left a note predicting it. It's in the glove compartment for when you're ready. Sarah looked at the car for another long moment, then turned back to Robert. Take me home. I need to rest. The chess pieces were in position. The strategy was clear. The timeline was set. Now came the waiting. And Sarah Wilson Mitchell, inheritor of a billion-dollar empire and protector of her daughter's future, was very, very good at waiting. 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Rachel Chen confirmed that both Sarah and the baby were healthy, though the stress had taken its toll. You need rest, nutrition, and peace, Dr. Chen said during their first appointment. Your blood pressure is elevated, understandable given circumstances, but we need to monitor it carefully. I'm safe now, Sarah assured her. The stress is over. Dr. Chen gave her a knowing look. Is it? Or are you planning something? Sarah smiled but didn't answer. The personal training sessions started gently. Marcus Johnson was a former athlete who specialized in prenatal and postpartum fitness. Your body has been through trauma, he said during their first session. Physical and emotional. We're not trying to transform you into something else. We're trying to help you feel strong and capable in your own skin." They started with walks, gentle yoga, breathing exercises. Nothing intense, nothing risky for the baby. Just movement, strength, reclaiming the body that pregnancy and stress had pushed to its limits. The nutrition consultations revealed Sarah had been undernourished for months. "You've been in survival mode," the nutritionist explained. "Your body was prioritizing the baby's needs over your own. We need to rebuild your reserves." Meals appeared like clockwork. Healthy, delicious, perfectly portioned. Sarah ate consistently for the first time in months and felt her energy returning. The legal team worked around the clock. David's attorneys were scrambling. The counterpetition had caught them off guard. The evidence of theft, the drained joint account, the canceled phone plan, the car keys, was damning. They tried to claim it was marital property redistribution, but the timing made that defense laughable. "They're pushing for mediation," James reported during a weekly check-in. "They want to settle quickly and quietly. David's attorneys know he looks terrible." "No settlement," Sarah said firmly. "Let it play out." "That's what Emma predicted you'd say," James smiled. "We're denying all mediation requests. The case goes to court in 4 months, well after the wedding." Catherine Zhao spent hours educating Sarah about the fortune. Investment strategies, tax implications, estate planning, charitable giving. The information was overwhelming, but fascinating. "You're not just rich," Catherine explained. "You're steward of a legacy. 3 generations of Wilson women have built this. Your responsibility is to protect it and grow it for future generations." "Including my daughter," Sarah said. "Especially your daughter." Emma established her trust fund at $150 million. Managed properly, by the time your daughter is an adult, that could be worth $500 million. She'll never be financially dependent on anyone. The thought made Sarah's chest tight with emotion. Her daughter would never experience what she'd experienced. Never stand on a sidewalk with no money and nowhere to go. Never be financially trapped by a cruel spouse. "Emma was brilliant," Sarah said softly. "She was," Catherine agreed. "But so are you. You just haven't had the chance to see it yet." After she watched the recognition register, watched his brain process what he was seeing. Sarah, who he'd last seen devastated and broken at the cemetery. Sarah, who he'd assumed would be living in poverty. Sarah, looking healthy and composed and holding their daughter, a daughter he'd never bothered to meet. He ended his call and walked over, his expression uncertain. "Sarah," he said, "I've been trying to find you." She looked at him calmly. "I know. Can we talk, please? There are things we need to discuss, legal things. And I'd like to meet my daughter." "Her name is Margaret," Sarah interrupted. "Margaret Emma, after my mother and sister." David glanced at the baby. His face showed no emotion, no connection. That's nice. She's 3 weeks old," Sarah continued. "She has your eyes. She wakes up twice a night. She loves being held. And you'll never know any of that because you signed away your parental rights." "I didn't sign anything about rights," David said quickly. "Not yet," Sarah agreed. "But you will. It's part of the divorce settlement my attorneys will propose." David's face hardened. "I'm not signing away rights to my own kid." "Then prepare for a custody battle," Sarah said mildly. "We can discuss it in court. Along with the theft of marital assets, the affair that started 9 months before filing, the cruelty at my sister's funeral, and the various other issues my attorneys are eager to present to a judge." "Sarah, come on." David's voice took on a pleading tone. "We both made mistakes. Can't we just—" "How's the wedding planning going?" Sarah asked. "Melissa must be excited." David's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern anymore." "You're right," Sarah said. The barista called her name. She picked up her latte with her free hand. The other was supporting Margaret. "Good luck with everything, David." She walked out, leaving him standing there. Through the window, she saw him pull out his phone and make a frantic call. To his attorney, probably. Or to Melissa. That night, James called. "David's attorney contacted us. They want an emergency meeting. They're willing to negotiate on the asset division if you'll stop countersuing for fraud." "No," Sarah said. "That's what I told them," James said, satisfaction clear in his voice. "David is panicking. The coffee shop encounter showed him you're not the broken woman he left behind. He's realizing he might have miscalculated." "He absolutely miscalculated," Sarah said. Week 11 brought the board meeting at Warren Manufacturing, the company Sarah now controlled with her 60% ownership. She arrived in the Mercedes, dressed in a sharp navy suit with Catherine beside her. The board members were older men, mostly, friends of David's father. They'd been running the company for decades, making decisions without oversight because Catherine Wilson's shares had been held in trust with absentee voting. Now Sarah was there, in person. Taking her seat at the head of the table, David's father, Richard Warren, stared at her with open hostility. "Mrs. Mitchell, I wasn't aware you'd be joining us today." "I'm the majority shareholder," Sarah said calmly. "I thought it was time to take an active interest in my investment." "Your investment?" Richard repeated. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing." "I'm not playing anything," Sarah interrupted. "I inherited these shares from my sister, who inherited them from our grandmother. You've been operating this company with my family's money for 3 years without oversight. That ends today." She opened her briefcase and pulled out documents. "These are the financial reports my analysts prepared. Your profit margins are thin. Your operational costs are bloated. And you've been paying yourself and 2 other board members excessive salaries while letting the workforce languish with below-market compensation." Richard's face turned red. "You don't know anything about running a manufacturing company." "You're right," Sarah agreed. "That's why I'm hiring consultants. They'll report directly to me. Any operational changes they recommend will be implemented. If you can't work within that structure, I'm prepared to replace leadership." The room went silent. Richard stared at her with undisguised rage. The other board members looked uncomfortable. "This is ridiculous," Richard sputtered. "I've been running this company for 30 years. And my grandmother owned it for 40, Sarah said. "You work for me, Mr. Warren. The sooner you accept that, the smoother this transition will be." The crowd was silent now. No gasps, just horrified attention. "But what really makes this timeline interesting," Sarah continued, her voice still calm, still measured, "is the involvement of Linda Warren, David's mother." Linda tried to stand again, but Richard pulled her back down. Click. Next slide. A bank transfer receipt. "This is a $10,000 transfer from Linda Warren to Melissa Chen. The date is 3 weeks before my sister Emma's funeral." The memo line says, "As discussed." My investigators obtained this through legal discovery. Click. Next slide. An email chain. These are emails between Linda and David, discussing what Linda calls my pregnancy problem. She writes, and I quote, "The baby will complicate divorce proceedings. You need to move quickly while she's emotionally vulnerable. The funeral is perfect timing. She'll be too destroyed to fight back." Another email. "Melissa will need incentive to accelerate the timeline. I can provide $10,000. That should be sufficient." The room had gone from shocked to horrified. Several guests were openly staring at Linda, who looked like she might faint. "So this wedding," Sarah said, turning back to David and Melissa, "wasn't just a spontaneous celebration of love. It was a carefully orchestrated exit strategy. Paid for, planned, timed to hit me at my most vulnerable moment." She paused, letting the weight of that settle. Now, let's talk about the pregnancy, Sarah said. Melissa, who'd been frozen at the altar, suddenly came to life. She's lying. She's absolutely lying. Is this lying? Sarah asked, clicking to the next slide. It was a text message. From Melissa to someone named Jenna. The date stamp was 4 months ago. The pregnancy is fake. I'm not actually pregnant. It's my insurance policy to make sure he marries me before the divorce is final. David's so desperate to believe he's starting fresh that he doesn't even question why I won't go to doctor's appointments. The room exploded. Actual shouting now. Melissa's family members stood up. David's face went from white to gray. That's taken out of context, Melissa screamed. I never said that. You sent it from your phone, Sarah said calmly. My investigators obtained it legally through Jenna, who was concerned about fraud. There are 6 more texts where you discuss the fake pregnancy with different friends. Would you like me to show them? Melissa tried to run. She actually picked up her dress and tried to flee toward the side exit. But security was there, blocking the door. Not touching her, just standing in the way. I'm not done, Sarah said. Please stay. You invited me here to witness your happiness. I'd hate to be rude and leave before sharing everything. Melissa stood at the edge of the room, mascara starting to run, bouquet abandoned on the floor. Sarah clicked to the next slide. Financial records. After David served me divorce papers at my sister's graveside. Yes, you heard that correctly, at the cemetery while I was 8 months pregnant, while mourners watched. He took several actions. He drained our joint bank account at 6 a.m. the next morning. $23,000. Every penny we'd saved for the baby, for the mortgage, for emergencies. He transferred it to his personal account. Another slide. He canceled my cell phone plan. Took the car keys to a car I'd driven for 4 years. Gave me 30 minutes to pack and leave the house in November, when I had nowhere to go and no money for a hotel. She could see some guests looking genuinely disturbed now. A few women had tears in their eyes. David's defense, presented through his attorneys, was that he was simply reclaiming his property, and that I should be grateful he gave me 30 minutes instead of calling the police. Click. Next slide. A photograph. Sarah standing at Emma's grave, visibly pregnant, holding divorce papers while Melissa stood in the background. This photo was taken by my sister's accountant, Mrs. Chen, who witnessed the entire interaction. Note Melissa in the background, wearing a red dress to a funeral. Also note, Sarah's voice hardened slightly for the first time. This photo was taken 3 seconds after Melissa walked up to me and spat in my face. The room went dead silent. She spat on you? Someone asked, incredulous. On me, Sarah confirmed. While I was standing at my sister's grave. While I was 8 months pregnant. While I was holding divorce papers I'd been handed 30 seconds earlier. And David laughed. She could see some of David's friends turning to look at him with disgusted expressions. David had his head in his hands. So, Sarah said, that's the love story you're all here to celebrate. A relationship that started with infidelity, was funded by a manipulative mother-in-law, was accelerated with a fake pregnancy, and was consummated by spitting on a grieving pregnant woman at her sister's funeral. She clicked to a new slide. This one was the kicker. Now, let's discuss what happened after David left me with nothing. The slide showed a photograph of a document. Last will and testament of Emma Catherine Wilson. My sister Emma, who died in a car accident 3 weeks before that cemetery encounter, was actually quite wealthy. Our grandmother, Catherine Wilson, was a brilliant investor. She started with nothing in 1965 and built a fortune through careful investing and strategic real estate purchases. Click. A photo of Catherine Wilson at a gala, elegant and powerful. By the time grandmother Catherine died 6 years ago, her estate was worth $900 million. She left it to Emma, who took that fortune and, through her own brilliant investing, increased it to $1.5 billion. The number hung in the air. Someone in the back gasped audibly. When Emma died, she left everything to me. So, David, when you served me papers at that cemetery, when you laughed while your mistress spat on me, when you took the last $23,000 I had, I was technically worth $1.5 billion. I just didn't know it yet. David's head snapped up. His face was a mask of horror. I found out the next day, Sarah continued, when Emma's attorney called me. He explained the inheritance, the properties, the investments, the strategic positioning Emma had done over the past 3 years. Because yes, Emma knew about the affair. She'd been documenting it since day one. Robert drove them away from the Riverside Plaza, away from the chaos and shouting and destroyed wedding. Sarah looked back once through the rear window. She could see guests streaming out of the building, phones out, calling people, posting to social media. The story would be everywhere by morning. How do you feel? Catherine asked from the front seat. Sarah thought about it. She felt lighter, like a weight she'd been carrying for months had finally lifted. I feel free, she said. They drove back to the penthouse. Sarah fed Margaret, changed her, rocked her to sleep while humming softly. She put her daughter down in the nursery and walked to the study. Emma's journals were still on the shelf. Sarah pulled out the final volume and opened it to the last entry, dated 2 days before Emma's death. If you're reading this after the confrontation, Sarah, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud. I know it was hard. I know part of you probably wanted to scream and rage and hurt them the way they hurt you. But you didn't. You stayed calm. You presented facts. You let the evidence speak. That's power. Real power. Not loud, not violent, just undeniable truth delivered with perfect timing. By now, David and his family are destroyed. Socially, professionally, financially. They'll never recover from this. And they did it to themselves. Every choice they made, every cruel word, every manipulation, it all came back to them. You didn't destroy them. You just held up a mirror and made everyone see what they really are. Now you need to focus on the future. Your future. Margaret's future. The foundation we've built together. Use the wealth wisely. Use it to help others. Use it to ensure no other woman is ever as vulnerable as you were. Live well. Love Margaret fiercely. Show her what strong women do, not that they seek revenge, but that they protect themselves and demand respect. And know that I'm with you, always, watching over you and my niece from wherever I am. The Wilson women don't break. They wait, they watch, and they win. You won, Sarah. Now go live your victory. All my love, forever, Emma. Sarah closed the journal and sat in the chair by the window. Outside, Atlanta glittered under the evening sky. Somewhere down there, David was dealing with the wreckage of his life. Melissa was probably being interrogated by her family. Linda and Richard were fighting. The guests were sharing the story, the videos, the evidence. Tomorrow, it would be headline news. Billionaire heiress exposes husband's betrayal at his wedding. The society pages would feast on it for weeks. The legal community would analyze it. The business sections would document the corporate shakeup at Warren Manufacturing. But Sarah didn't care about any of that. She'd done what Emma had prepared her to do. She'd protected herself and her daughter. She'd established boundaries that could never be crossed again. She'd shown the world, and Margaret, someday when she was old enough to understand, that cruelty has consequences. The phone James had given her buzzed with a text. From James himself. It's everywhere. Every major Atlanta news outlet has the story. 3 national outlets have requested interviews. Your attorney recommends no comment for now. The evidence speaks for itself. Sarah typed back. Agreed. No interviews. Let the facts stand on their own. Another text, this time from Catherine. David's firm released a statement saying they've mutually agreed to part ways with David Mitchell, effective immediately. Richard Warren resigned from the board of Warren Manufacturing an hour ago. It's happening fast. Good, Sarah thought. Let it happen fast. Let them experience the destruction they'd planned for her. I think she was going to warn me. I think she was going to tell me she knew about the affair and give me a chance to fix things before Margaret was born. I didn't take that meeting. Another mistake in a long line of mistakes. I've signed away all rights to Margaret. I know you think that makes me a monster. You're probably right. But I also know I'm not capable of being the father she deserves. I'm not capable of being anything good right now. Maybe someday, years from now, when she's older, you could tell her that her father was weak and stupid and cruel, but that he knew he didn't deserve her, that he made the choice to walk away because keeping her away from him was the one decent thing he could do. I'm leaving Atlanta. I don't know where I'm going yet. Somewhere I can start over, though I don't deserve that either. I hope you and Margaret have a good life. I hope you use Emma's fortune to do good things. I hope you forget I ever existed. I'm sorry for everything. David. Sarah read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it in Margaret's baby book. Someday, when her daughter was old enough to ask about her father, Sarah would show it to her, not to excuse his behavior, but to show her that even people who make terrible choices can recognize their mistakes. But that was a conversation for many years in the future. Saturday, exactly 1 week after the wedding that never finished, Sarah spent the day at the penthouse with Margaret. No appointments, no meetings, no journalists camped outside, just mother and daughter. She fed Margaret, changed her, sang to her, read board books in silly voices. She took a dozen photos of Margaret's tiny fingers and toes, her expressive faces, her random newborn smiles that probably weren't really smiles, but looked like joy anyway. In the evening, after Margaret was asleep, Sarah sat in the study and pulled out Emma's journals one final time. She read through the 3 years of entries, absorbing her sister's wisdom, her strategy, her love. The final page of the final journal had just one line, dated the day before Emma died. Sarah, by now, you know everything. You've seen what you're capable of. You've seen what the Wilson women do when cornered. Now go be extraordinary. I love you, always. E. Sarah closed the journal and added it to the shelf with the others. 3 generations of Wilson women, documented in leather-bound volumes. Catherine's investment strategies, Emma's business plans. And now, Sarah would add her own volume, her story, her wisdom for Margaret. She pulled out a new journal, leather-bound, expensive, with blank pages waiting, and wrote on the first page, "For Margaret Emma Mitchell, this is the story of how your mother learned to be strong. It starts with betrayal at a graveside. It includes a grandmother you never met and an aunt who died too soon. It involves $1.5 billion, a wedding that became a reckoning, and the understanding that cruelty always reveals itself. But mostly, it's about protection. About building walls so strong that you and I will never be vulnerable again. About creating a legacy that ensures Wilson women are never dismissed, never discarded, never treated as less than we are. Your Aunt Emma taught me. The Wilson women don't break. They wait, they watch, and they win. I'm teaching you. The Wilson women also protect, They build. They create futures where daughters grow up knowing their worth. This is our story. This is our power. This is our legacy. Love, Mom. Sarah closed the journal and set it on the shelf beside Emma's volumes. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Monday morning brought the official announcement. The Emma Wilson Foundation for Women's Independence was officially established with a $50 million endowment. The foundation would provide legal assistance, housing support, job training, and child care services for women leaving abusive or controlling relationships. Sarah was listed as founder and board chair. Catherine Zhao as chief financial officer. James Morrison as legal advisor. The shelter where Sarah had almost stayed the night David kicked her out was the first partner organization. The press loved it. Billionaire heiress turns personal tragedy into philanthropic mission. The story humanized Sarah, transformed her from the mysterious woman who'd destroyed a wedding into someone using her wealth for good. Interview requests intensified, but Sarah continued to decline them all. Instead, she had Catherine issue a single statement. The Emma Wilson Foundation exists to ensure no woman faces the vulnerability I faced, to ensure that financial dependence never traps anyone in cruelty. This is Emma's legacy and my commitment to every woman who needs protection. Perfect, powerful, said everything that needed to be said. Tuesday brought unexpected news. Melissa Chen had been arrested in Los Angeles on fraud charges. Apparently, the fake pregnancy scheme wasn't her first. Investigators had found evidence of 2 previous fake pregnancy claims with different men, both involving demands for money. She was extradited back to Georgia to face multiple counts of fraud and grand larceny. She'll get at least 5 years, James reported. Maybe more if other victims come forward. Wednesday, Sarah attended her first board meeting as the chair of Warren Manufacturing. She'd hired a new CEO, a woman with 30 years of manufacturing experience. Together, they unveiled a new strategy: pay raises for factory workers, safety improvements, profit-sharing programs. This company will be a model, Sarah told the assembled board members, all new, all carefully vetted. A model of how to treat workers fairly, how to operate ethically, and how to generate profit without exploitation. My grandmother built her fortune on integrity. This company will reflect that value. The workers loved it. Local media covered it. Sarah's reputation continued to shift from mysterious heiress to ethical businesswoman. Thursday, Sarah took Margaret to visit Emma's grave. It was the first time she'd been back to the cemetery since that terrible day. She knelt at the headstone. White marble, simple, elegant. Emma Catherine Wilson, 1996 to 2024. Beloved sister, brilliant strategist, protector of those she loved. We did it, Sarah whispered, Margaret sleeping in the carrier on her chest. We followed your plan exactly. And it worked. Everything worked. She placed white roses on the grave, Emma's favorite. I'm establishing the foundation, managing the inheritance, protecting Margaret, doing everything you prepared me to do. A breeze rustled the trees. Sarah imagined it was Emma, acknowledging her words. Thank you, Sarah continued. Thank you for seeing what was coming. Thank you for protecting us. Thank you for teaching me to be strong. She stood, adjusted Margaret in the carrier, and walked back to the Mercedes. Robert was waiting, as always, patient and professional. Home? He asked. Home, Sarah confirmed. 3 months later, Sarah sat in her office at the foundation headquarters, a beautiful renovated building in downtown Atlanta that had once housed a bank. Now it housed hope. She was reviewing applications for the foundation's legal assistance program when Catherine knocked on her office door. Someone's here to see you, Catherine said. She says she knew your grandmother. Sarah looked up, curious. Send her in. An elderly woman entered. She must have been in her 80s, with white hair and kind eyes. She moved slowly, using a cane. "Mrs. Mitchell," the woman said. "I'm Helen Rodriguez. I worked with your grandmother Catherine in the 1970s, back when she was just starting out. I heard about the foundation, and I had to come meet you." Sarah stood and offered her a chair. "Please sit. Tell me about my grandmother." Helen settled into the chair with a grateful sigh. Catherine was extraordinary, brilliant with numbers. But more than that, she understood people. She understood that wealth wasn't just about making money. It was about creating security and freedom. "She kept her fortune hidden," Sarah said. "I never understood why." "Because she'd seen what wealth did to people," Helen explained. "Her own family tried to control her, manipulate her, use her. After your mother left, Catherine decided the best protection was to be underestimated. She lived simply, invested brilliantly, and built an empire in silence." "For Emma," Sarah said. "For Emma, and through Emma, for you." Helen smiled. Catherine knew exactly what she was doing. She was building protection for granddaughters she'd never meet, making sure Wilson women would never be trapped or controlled again. Sarah felt tears forming. "I never got to thank her." "You're thanking her now," Helen said, gesturing around the office. "This foundation, the way you're using the wealth, the protection you're building for your own daughter, that's her legacy continuing." They talked for an hour. Helen shared stories about Catherine's early days, her struggles, her triumphs, the coffee shop where she used to plan her investments, the apartment where she studied financial reports late into the night, the moment she made her first $1 million and celebrated alone because she couldn't tell anyone. When Helen finally stood to leave, she took Sarah's hand. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you. Emma, too. You're exactly what they were building toward." After Helen left, Sarah sat at her desk and looked out the window at Atlanta. 3 generations of Wilson women had built this legacy. Catherine with her strategic genius, Emma with her brilliant execution, and now Sarah, continuing the work, ensuring no woman would ever be as vulnerable as she'd been. Her phone buzzed, a text from the nanny. "Margaret took her first steps today. She walked 4 steps before falling. I got it on video." Sarah smiled and closed her laptop. The foundation could wait. The investments could wait. The meetings and strategies and plans could all wait. Right now, she needed to go home and watch her daughter's first steps, because that's what all of this was really about. Not the money, not the revenge, not even the justice. It was about giving Margaret a world where she could take those first steps freely, safely, knowing she was protected by 3 generations of strong women who'd ensured she'd never need to depend on anyone who didn't deserve her trust. The Wilson women didn't break. They watched, they waited, and they won. And now, they thrived. Sarah gathered her things and headed home, where Margaret was waiting, taking wobbly steps and learning to walk, just like her mother had learned to stand again after being knocked down. The story had come full circle. The legacy was secure, and the future was bright.